Hey folks, how you guys doing?
Hey, great.
Doing well.
How are you guys feeling after revealing three hardware things? I feel like you guys were probably like going crazy not revealing it to the world. Now it's finally out there. You guys feeling good?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a big relief to have
Yeah.
all that stuff out there. I mean, we're super happy with how that's been looking so far. I think people have a lot of good feedback. It's been really good to read the conversations and be able to talk about it more openly. I think for us, when we're working on all this stuff, it's pretty hard for us to try and keep it all under wraps, right? Like it creates additional work every step of the way. So we're pretty glad to be able to release a bunch of the stuff we've been working on now without having to worry about it potentially tipping our hand in terms of the hardware and stuff.
Yeah, it's a
What's
real tax to try to keep things secret. So it's nice to
mm,
finally be able to talk about things and actually ship stuff, and not have to worry about leaking strings or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, just today we were putting live some of the ARM Steam runtime stuff and some components that like it's just started now in terms of
mm.
actually shipping it. So we're super excited about that.
What's like when you start seeing leaks for it pre-release though? Like, are you sort of going, "Fuck, how did they figure that out? What the hell?" Are you like you sort of like go panic stations, or are you just like, "Oh well, nothing we can do about that. Let's just keep on keeping on."
It's uh, it's funny and a little annoying. I mean, we joke because every now and then people will ask us like, "You guys are doing that on purpose, right?" It's like, no, why would we? We work so hard not to do that kind of stuff. And a lot of the leaks, at least this time, a lot of the leaks were not from us. It's just other people doing things that let things slip. But
Yeah.
I mean, I think we helped
we
along the
we
way,
did help a
but
little bit. From the earlier
accidentally,
ones.
yeah. There's a lot of I think there's a lot of figuring that out by trying to figure out okay what happened there, but there's also in a sense every leak is an opportunity to get feedback, right? And so sometimes the thing that actually gets out in the public is misleading or incomplete, so you don't get full feedback. But when people in the community are actually really perceptive and smart about that stuff, so even in the earliest leaks, people were kind of predicting what we were doing, and
Mm,
so
mm,
when those predictions align with what we're working on, we actually have an opportunity to get a lot of advanced feedback on what we're doing. And
mm.
usually it's just it's a good kind of rallying kind of effect for the team where everyone's like extra excited to be working
Yeah.
on what we're working on.
It's also a
For sure.
good confirmation when people sort of read into what we're doing and they're like, oh, it would make sense for them to do X, Y, Z because of these things that they've already put into place. And we're like, yes, exactly. That is why we're doing it.
For sure.
The
Yeah,
thing that
actually,
caught me by surprise, though.
Sorry,
Oh,
go on,
sorry. Go
Jack.
ahead,
Yeah.
Ralph.
No, I was going to say, just before we continue, I think it'd be interesting just to understand your roles in this project, because the last time
Yeah.
we spoke, I think we spoke with Lawrence, and Lawrence, you're just like, yeah, I'm just doing things. You don't really have like a specific job title. I'm like, I just do a bit of this, a bit of that. Like, I understand Valve works very sort of amorphously. And I just wondered what your specific contributions were to these various products. So if you could just take a minute to explain that, that'd be great.
Sure, yeah. Specific contribution is always hard because it's such a team effort, right? There's a ton of work that goes into stuff, and so by the time anything ships, dozens of pairs of hands have touched it. So it's a little bit hard to attribute any work, to me specifically. But in general, I try and think about platforms. So I work on Steam and open source projects that contribute to the various efforts that we have around Linux and just the ecosystem, to grow it for desktop and PC use, and also on our hardware projects. So, kind of a double whammy of like developing our internal platforms, the hardware stuff, and also external platforms like SteamOS and all the components that come into play there.
Mm.
Yeah. And I'm, like I said last time, I'm a designer by trade, and I am still a little bit of this, a little bit of that. I mean, I do a lot of stuff related to UX, especially where hardware UX hits Steam and things that we might need to be updating with regard to like pairing flows or out of box experience, things like that. Most recently, leading up to announcement, I spent a lot of time thinking about communications and press and marketing and how we talk about these things.
Mm.
And then now that we've announced, I'm going to go back to do more product level stuff. So little of this, little of
Cool.
that.
Yeah, yeah,
I like
absolutely.
that. That's
Absolutely.
good. I think the first thing of all the announcements, the controller is the one that caught me by surprise. I was a big fan of your original attempt at a controller,
Cool.
and I didn't expect to see this one coming. But what was the kernel of idea for this? Like, what to you guys is special about this controller?
Yeah, I mean, if you've used the original controller, I think you'll see all the same elements in there, right? And so it's really much a continuation of the same idea of being able to play all the games in your library and not just the ones that were made for a controller, right? But this for this specific version, most of the learning process that went into the design of it actually happened as part of the Steam Deck, because the Steam Deck have a very similar set of controls there. And our process to get there was, okay, we want to attain the same goal as the original Steam controller, the one you had, which is to be able to play everything. But we want to have that level of familiarity that people expect with normal controllers, because we got a bunch of feedback back then that while people enjoyed the fact that it was a PC peripheral that you could use to play keyboard and mouse games and all that, for actual like games that were thought around controllers and things that really expected dual stick inputs,
Mm.
there was some drawbacks, right, and a little bit extra learning compared to ideally what we would want. So the Steam Deck controls were kind of a trade off between getting at all these goals, but also being super familiar, so you could just hit the ground running. And this controller is a direct continuation of that.
Yeah, and it has, in addition to having the familiar controls of Steam Deck, it has a few extra, not bells and whistles, but additional features that we think will make this an even better controller. So the TMR thumbsticks, the magnetic thumbsticks, so that it has a tiny dead zone and really long life. We added a new capacitive area in the back called Grip Sense as another way to enable and disable motion controls.
Mm.
And then the included Steam controller puck is a good way to have a really easy plug and play connection that also doubles as a charging station. So a lot of thought went into how we can make this a really good controller for all of your games, no matter whether they were made for a controller or not.
Yeah. Tell me, I think you guys were like talking up the trackpads on the Steam Deck. And like people actually use those. And like I get that they would use it, but I wonder how much they're using it. Like, do you have any data about like what percentage of players are using the trackpads or what percentage of game like anything at all to sort of guide your decision on like why you've doubled down on that in this controller?
Yeah, we don't have a ton of fine grained data on how people use things, but we have some data on what kind of configurations they're creating, right? And if those configurations are using the trackpad or using the gyro or using the grip buttons. So we look at all that stuff. But for something like a trackpad or one of these features, the effect that we usually see is that it's not a majority of people that use them, but the people that use them depend on them heavily, right?
Right,
So
right,
because
right.
there's certain games that you're uh, completely blocked off, at least maybe there's some features in Steam Input you can use to bridge the gap with a normal controller without a trackpad, but you're not going to have the same experience, right? So, like for some of those games, or things like getting a little bit extra performance for FPS games, getting through launcher screens, interacting with the desktop, I think those are the most common things. And then there's also uh, games that were made for PC keyboard, right? That have a ton of hotkeys, and for that, we have a bunch of features, like you can have on-screen menus and put 16 hotkeys on a trackpad and just pick them out like that,
Mm.
similar to how we do trackpad typing. So those are, I guess, the main use cases we've seen for people using
Yeah.
trackpads in a while.
Well, from an ergonomic standpoint, everybody says it's a Steam Deck, but without the screen in the middle. But I feel like there was definitely more design. Lawrence, I remember speaking with you last time about like the process of coming up with the controller. Did you guys go back to the drawing board and do similar things?
Oh yeah, I think last time we talked, I might have shown you a bin full of 3D printed
You
parts where we
did.
were coming up with
Yep.
different like we have a similar bin full of even more 3D printed configurations for Steam controller. So a lot of thought went into how those the trackpad specifically, like how are they positioned to be the most comfortable, so they're actually rotated or clocked a little bit and canted, so they're like tilted a little bit, so that they're the most comfortable for your thumbs to hit them. And like PL said, it's not something you're gonna like. Some people will never use them, or some people only use them really rarely. But when they are useful, they are extremely useful, like getting through a
Mhm.
launcher screen or using the desktop.
Mm.
And especially when you're using it with a PC or with a Steam machine, you can't fall back to a touchscreen anymore. So in a case where, oh, I can just get through this by jabbing the screen, now you really don't have any other recourse, unless you do
Sure.
have a trackpad in some cases.
Yeah, in general, on the controller, you have a little bit more room to work with compared to the deck. So we were able to just take a little bit more liberties with ergonomics and get to a better outcome there by having just a little bit more flexibility with where the inputs are and how they're laid out. But if you look at like there's some people in the community that are making mock-ups of like, okay, here's the controls from the deck, and if you put them where you'd expect, if your hands are closer, it kind of looks like that. It's very close, right? Those match almost perfectly.
Yeah, we have our own version of that. Literally cut out the screen and like put them together, and everything's like vertical. And it turns out that's actually pretty uncomfortable in a lot of ways.
Right.
Your hand positions when your arms are close are very different than when they're a foot apart.
Of course, yeah, sure. So moving on to the the Steam Frame. Obviously, that was rumored for a little bit. It made sense that Valve wanted to continue in working in this space. What were your key learnings from the Index that you were really reflecting on when it came time to develop the Frame?
Yeah, we learned a ton from Index, and I mean, something that we always say is everything builds on what we made before. Steam Deck built on everything that we made before, and Steam Frame also built off of Valve Index and Steam Deck in a lot of ways. So what we heard from players is that we and they liked a lot about the Valve Index and what it brought in terms of a new level of fidelity for PC gaming. But there were certain things that folks felt can be improved. Things like I wish it was easier to set up. I wish I didn't have a tether. I wish I could just like pop it on and play a game. I wish it was lighter. I wish it was more comfortable. So a lot of these things really did drive a lot of the key design decisions around what went into Steam Frame. So the decision to go with camera tracking, inside-out tracking instead of base stations was a very intentional choice, so that people don't have to worry about, oh, this is my VR room where I have the base station set up, and if I want to move the room, I have to move the base stations. And then similarly, the lack of a tether is really great. Like, you don't have to worry about wrapping the tether around your foot if you're turning around. But that also led to some other innovations, because we're like, okay, well, if we're going to go wireless streaming for this thing, because we think that's the best experience, we're going to need to make sure that streaming experience is extremely good. So then we did a bunch of stuff around software and hardware to make sure that it would be a rock solid streaming experience.
And just to be clear on that, anyone who doesn't know, there are essentially two Wi-Fi channels, and one of them is dedicated just to streaming data from the PC, which is connected via a dedicated dongle, which I understand is called internally the chongle, right? And am I wrong about that? Is that correct or not?
I think you have some misinformation.
You got your dongles mixed up, but it's okay.
Was it the other dongle? Was it the other dongle that was the chongle?
That's right.
Sorry, I'm confusing my chongles and my dongles. My apologies. Allegedly. Yeah. So anyway, it connects into the PC. It streams dedicated, and there's another Wi-Fi channel available, which is exclusively for actual internet data, and that's how you get that sort of improved throughput. So is there any kind of metrics around how much more sort of bandwidth that opens up in terms of you've noticed X% improvement in terms of fidelity and throughput with those two channels versus not, or anything around that?
It's a little hard for that specific metric. It's a little hard because everyone's Wi-Fi situation is so different. And that's part of why we're including the adapter. Is there are some people who have amazing Wi-Fi setups at home. And for those people, they're like, well, what if I just want to go directly over my Wi-Fi router? They can. Like, it's totally fine too. But we know that everyone has a different setup. So we wanted to make sure that by default, we know we can give you this wireless adapter and it will give you a direct link. And that we also don't want that to be competing for bandwidth with whatever you're doing online. So that for us, there isn't really a metric of how much it's better. It's kind of it depends on how bad it used to be.
Yeah.
Sure. It's not really about bandwidth, right? It's more interference that results in things like spikes, right? Yeah. And so you can't really quantify that with a number. But those are the kind of issues you're going to have, right? When you're talking to the internet at the same time, then, or if your link is trying to retry in a way that causes like a latency spike, your effective bandwidth's not actually going down that much, but it's enough to not be as good of an experience.
Yeah. The thing that will affect bandwidth, or at least effective bandwidth, is the other stuff that we did in software with the eye tracking and foveated streaming. So foveated streaming is this new feature that Steam Frame has where we have cameras that are looking at your eyes and tracking it really fast to see what you're looking at. And basically, we just tell the wireless adapter, hey, only shoot over the bits that your eyes are looking at. And basically, that ends up being kind of a 10% chunk of that screen. And if you extrapolate that out, that's like a 10x improvement in bandwidth, of effective bandwidth, because we're only shooting 10% of the bits, but at like 10x the resolution, only to the parts where you're looking at. And this is one of those things where it's hard to describe, but easier to show. When we had press on site,
Yeah,
we
I saw
showed
that.
them a little demonstration of how it was working, and no one was able to actually see it when it was in use until we turned on a visualizer, and they could see their eye bouncing around, and they were never able to catch up with the sharp area of the frame.
So was this actually like an innovation that you guys developed, or is this technology that you acquired from somewhere? Like, where does this come from?
Yeah, we pretty sure we had developed
Yeah,
this
we
internally.
developed
Okay.
we developed all that stuff in house. I mean, even since the early days of VR, like
Yeah.
all the original track controllers and just I guess this VR stuff as you know it. I think we did a lot of the original development
Yeah.
of that in house as well. Yeah.
It's fascinating. Yeah, it just makes so much sense. It's such a great idea.
Yeah, it's cool.
What led
because
to you
then-
guys lean towards? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was just saying, I really think that this foveated streaming thing is cool because it also means that developers don't have to do anything the way that it's set up. A lot of folks in the VR space know about foveated rendering, which uses similar eye tracking technology to say like, oh, computer who's running the game, only focus your rendering energy on the 10% that they're looking at. But that requires a developer making the video game to do that work to implement that feature. Whereas this will just automatically work on any game.
What was the deciding factor on leaning on streaming rather than focusing on just computing on the hardware itself?
Well, if you look at like the the current index experience that people are having, they have a bunch of content that they're playing. I think it's important that they're able to just play all the same games, right? That you can have this exact same experience, and so that streaming is the main way to guarantee that. There's a lot of games that are very performance demanding, right? That to offer like really good visuals, and those would be hard to get to run on a small mobile device. So like streaming is a way to make sure that your whole library is available to the same extent that it would be if you had something directly plugged into your PC.
Yeah, and also like whole library, including non-VR games. Like we
Yeah.
want you to be able to play a AAA game on a gigantic screen inside of VR, and the best way to experience that is streaming. That said, like we are excited about standalone and all the work we did on FX and the different translation layers to make all that work is really cool, and it's getting better every day. It's kind of like the early days of Steam Deck. So we do think that as we roll out the developer kit program, as we improve things on the FX and Proton and SteamOS side, by the time we launch next year, we're hoping to have like a pretty robust library of Steam Frame standalone play verified games.
Yeah, awesome.
Cool.
Name
And that's
TBD.
That's a good segue, actually. Sorry, Jake, you go. You're going to say something.
I was just going to say, with the amount of work you guys have been doing with streaming here, do you think we could see any ripple effect with Steam Link? Because I know there are plenty of people who still use that.
Well, I think the streaming work we've been doing is just like you said, improve the experience for anyone that's using remote play, no matter what their endpoint is. So the Steam Link app on Android is a good example of that. I think some of the UX improvements that are just being made as part of that are gonna benefit that experience as well. But also from any two devices running Steam. If you have a laptop and a main computer, if you have a Steam Deck and a Steam machine, and a frame and a machine or any PC, I think all those areas of work that we've been doing are going to benefit there. The foveated streaming part is only applicable to the frame, however, because the eye tracking is required on the terminal side.
Yeah.
So just to be clear, I think you guys have already said that you're not working on any VR titles currently at Valve. Is that correct?
Yeah, we're not talking about content. Yeah.
Not talking about content. Okay.
Yeah, we're not announcing anything in terms of games or anything like.
Okay. So no Half-Life 3 announcement today.
We're not
No.
doing that.
All right, we had to
Nice
try.
try.
We had to try.
We
We
tried.
had to try.
That's it. Wrap it up.
But a broader question though, zooming out of the VR landscape, how are you feeling about the state of it from the software side of things, right? Because I feel like we had a really big push with sort of VR gaming stuff a few years back, which obviously was typified by Alex, and since then it feels like it's dropped off a fair amount, and I wondered how confident you're feeling in that landscape. Do you see that we're sort of at an equilibrium with interest? Do you think it's going to surge in future? Like, what are your predictions for where that might go in the coming years?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think my hope is that products like Steam Frame will help kind of galvanize more interest in the VR space. I mean, part of what we're doing by shipping it with an ARM chip is that it is able to basically play mobile VR games that are that have been made to target other headsets that are running ARM chips. And we really hope that those developers will bring their games to Steam and to Steam Frame and sort of bolster that library. We are also looking at Steam Frame a little bit differently from like a standard VR headset, in that, um, well, unlike Index, which was a VR appliance for your PC to play PC VR games, we just see it as a new way to play your entire Steam library, whether it's VR or not VR. So from that standpoint, we kind of see the footprint of it being a little bit larger.
It's been cool to see PC VR stuff grow and evolve, though. I mean, I think it's a whole new genre that didn't really exist a decade ago, right? Like that just came out of nowhere after all that tech innovation, and it all started on PC, right? Like most new game genres or business models or anything, because it's an open platform where you can do anything, right? And so I think it's really important to us in general. The fact that Steam Frame is going to have a bunch of opportunities for more people to experience that content, it can only be a good thing for that, right? Even if you're playing a flat game, you're still in headset, you're able to stand up and go play a game or play a seated VR game. So we're excited that there's just going to be more available users for all that cool content.
Yeah. Well, I think another thing that may enlarge the landscape is the Steam Machine, which you guys have also announced, which is kind of the one that really was a big surprise to me. So basically, if anyone doesn't know, it is a dedicated PC that's running SteamOS, and it's 6 by 6 inches, so it's a little cube, hence it being nicknamed the Gabe Cube, and it will ship. There's an option; it will ship with and without a controller. Correct? As in, there's bundles that you can choose from. Correct?
Yep.
And yeah, so it's really interested to hear, how this happened. Because obviously Valve had a crack at this Steam Machine model a number of years ago, but it was a very different attempt. So maybe we can start there, and what were the learnings from that attempt that you look to sort of respond to here with this different approach?
Yeah, when we shipped original Steam Machines, a lot of work was put in the OS, of course, and we did a ton of work with both internal teams for our game teams, but also external game developers to get the games over to the platform, right? Porting them to Linux and SteamOS, porting them to OpenGL. In doing that, we understood firsthand how much work it is to actually do that, right? And so we came out of it thinking, okay, we think we actually nailed the experience, right? Like getting in and out of the games and the living room and everything, like that's working fine. But the catalog is not where it needs to be because porting games is too hard, right? And there's not also a strong reason to incur a bunch of hard work to port the games if there's not a bunch of people already using. So we had a little bit of a bootstrapping problem, right? And so immediately following that, we started working on Proton and the Vulkan API as well, which are kind of building blocks of things that we're leveraging now so that the whole library can be played without a bunch of work from the game developers to port the game. Instead, I think it took almost a decade of work to get there to the point where games just run out of the box. But now that we're here, and Steam Deck kind of proved that it was possible, I think it was the right time to get to the living room again with the product like the Steam Machine. For the work that game developers have been putting into games to make them run better on Steam Deck and on Steam Machine and Frame going forward, we're excited that the type of work that we're seeing being done is actually not porting work. It's just work that makes the game better on every platform. Things like adding different options for control schemes, adding more scalability options for lower performance machines, improving UI density so it's more legible on small screens or screens that are far away. All of this work is happening right now and is getting more games to the deck verified finish line, right? But all of this stuff is going to apply equally to Steam Machine and Steam Frame as well, and we're seeing the ramifications of that, meaning that the whole Steam catalog is more accessible on any PC and not just our products, and we're really excited about that.
Yeah. Well, sorry, Jay, you go.
I was curious about jumping from that anti-cheat and that whole situation. You guys have gone on record about this a little bit in terms of it being supported on the developer side, but have you guys done any rethinking with that approach now that it's going to be a box plugged into a TV in somebody's living room? accessing some of these games online?
It's been definitely something we think about, and there is more reasons to think about it in that environment, like you're pointing out, right? Because there's more reasons that someone would want to play an online game that requires anti-cheat if they have a machine like that compared to something like the Steam Deck. So definitely is something that's been like we've been working on it. We've enabled all the TPM APIs, right? That game developers would need to be able to build their anti cheat systems. We've been working with a bunch of developers, right? Like the players in the field that you might expect that are doing a lot of advanced anti cheat stuff on the client side, and we're trying to make sure that we're working together towards something that can be supported. But at the end of the day, I think supporting anti-cheat and is kind of a constant effort, right? Like you have the system, the infrastructure, and you're always rolling out updates. There's a lot of like active things you're doing, and I think some of that work by nature, because it's so close to the platform, will have to be SteamOS specific. And so I think it will be something that like some publishers or some game developers will have to decide at their own rhythm if they want to do that work for SteamOS or not.
Right.
But we've been trying to help any way we can along the way.
Yeah, right. Interesting. So it is basically it is happening in the sense that like you're working on it, but you can't give us any kind of timeline or what have you, because ultimately it's up to these anti-cheat providers and publishers to sort of make the decision to develop solutions that are compatible with SteamOS.
Right, and there's
Right.
there's some things that are on our plate as well, for sure. That we've been working on in the background that will make that easier on their side as well.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. Cool. So, and just coming back to that sort of decision to greenlight the Steam machine, like, did it happen kind of organically? Like, you put all this work into making a deck, and then someone was just in like around the water cooler, be like, "Hey, wouldn't it be cool if we'd made a console?" And then someone's like, "Yeah, let's do that," and then it just happened. Or was it like, no, it was an agonizing decision. We weren't sure what we were going to do. Like, walk us through that moment when you sort of
Well,
tick the box and off we go.
I mean, as you can imagine, the idea wasn't really groundbreaking. So everyone understood that it's something we could do even before Deck. But I think after shipping Deck and seeing a year or two go by and watching all the catalog become like closer to Deck verified, and seeing a bunch of these tweaks to have default graphical settings, seeing the great experience that people are having with it, I think it really proved to us that okay, actually we should be able to pull this off now.
And also we shipped the Steam Deck dock around the same time, and we saw basically 20% of people who bought a Steam Deck also have a dock. And that doesn't even include the people who got a third-party dock. So there are a lot of people who are actually playing Steam Decks docked to a TV, which is kind of what led to Steam Controller, because they're like, oh, this kind of sucks. I want to play my Steam games but I don't have all the inputs that I'm used to for my Steam Deck. And so that kind of led to Steam Controller, and they're like, oh, I'm playing all my Steam games in my living room. Be cool if this had a little more power to it. So
yeah.
Working back from an existing audience of users that are using the thing, the experience in the way that we're proposing to improve, and are giving us immediate feedback on what works and what doesn't work, is really our preferred way to go about it. So like we're not trying to build something that because we think it's a good idea. We want to make sure that users are into it. And so for us, having those Deck users that were docked, that were telling us things about the level of performance they're getting, but also having to leave their controller behind when they're docking the Deck, right, and having to use a third-party controller. All of that gave us a really crisp direction on the things to improve on for that experience.
And I'm curious about obviously price, because that's a huge question with this, because we look at this device and we understand that it's sort of a mid-level PC in that sort of category. You said that the Steam machine is more powerful than 70% of gaming PCs that you register on the hardware server. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think in terms of like general GPU level, I think we have looked at that number as part of speccing the machine, so it's possible it's evolved a little bit over time, but I think ballpark it's about there.
Yeah. So then obviously that question becomes like, okay, well, where does the price land? I know you haven't announced a price yet, but I mean, can you give us any information about what consumers might expect in this regard?
I think that if you build a PC from parts and get to basically the same level of performance, that's the general price window that we aim to be at.
Okay.
Ideally, we'd be pretty competitive with that and have a pretty
Okay.
good deal, but we're working on refining that as we speak. And right now is just a hard time to have a really good idea of what the price is going to be, because there's a lot
Sure.
of different things that
A lot
are
of external,
fluctuating.
a lot of external
Yeah.
factors that are changing
Absolutely.
things. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but it's not going to be a sort of subsidized device. Like Valve's not going into this thinking we're going to eat a big loss on this so that we can grow market like share or category or anything like that. Correct?
No, it's more in line with what you might expect from the current PC market. Yeah.
Okay.
Obviously, our goal is for it to be a good deal at that level of performance, and then you have features that are actually really hard to build if you're making your own gaming PC from parts, right? Like things like, well, I mean, obviously the small form factor, and I think the noise level that we achieved or lack thereof is really impressive, and we're excited that the people are going to find out how quiet this thing is.
Yeah.
But also some integration features like HDMI CEC, right? Like being able to turn on your TV, turn off your TV, change
Nice.
the control it with your TV remote, change the volume, all that kind of stuff. Like the Bluetooth and wireless work that we've done, the 4 antennas, the like very deliberate design to make sure that you can have a great experience with 4 Bluetooth controllers from any manufacturer, plus our Steam controller receiver integrated as well. Like that's all hard to do, but more importantly, you can turn on the machine from your controller, right? Which is not something that's actually straightforward depending on the type of PC you have or the main chipset and all that. So like being able to sit down on your couch, press one button on your controller, and the whole thing lights up like you'd expect for a thing that's in your living room, I think that's very valuable. And there's not really a price point to that, because it's not really something that exists in the PC market right now. And so I think there's people that are going to be perfectly happy building their PC at whatever level of spec, and that's going to be a great experience for them. I think we're building SteamOS so that if they want to use it for that, they can, and they can have essentially the same experience. And if they're happy with that, that's perfectly good with us. But we expect the machine is a nice baseline offering that lets you have some features that are really hard to get to otherwise.
And part of the, like, for me, one of the benefits of Steam Machine is I'm someone who used to build my PC in college, and I am too old and tired to do that now. So I would like to have a nice PC that I can
feel
plug
that.
in and
I
play my
feel
games.
that.
Yeah.
Would Valve at all be interested in a Steam Machine Pro? Because obviously you've got this unit which is hitting at that mid-level. Is that the kind of thing that might fit into the category in the future, do you think?
Potentially, yeah. I think we're open to anything. For now, we're focusing on this level of spec because we think it's a good trade-off between affordability and the level of power we get. I think we're excited that the level of performance kind of gets you to the point where the whole library is pretty much good to go, and you don't really have to worry about a game that's going to come out or not. There's always some settings you can find that are going to get to a pretty good experience. So we're trying to find that sweet spot, right? But I think there's a variety of different spec levels in the PC market. There's a bunch of stuff that you can do to get super crisp like 4K native outputs, or even going beyond that, very high refresh rates. There's the PC ecosystem is too big to be able to pin down and say, okay, this is it, this is PC, right? And so we're actually super excited to see what people do from their own parts or working with third parties as well, because we're trying to make sure that SteamOS is going to be good for any spec level and not just the one that we chose.
Have you guys rethought retail at all? Have you had any conversations about possibly, now that you're rolling out multiple pieces of hardware, putting these in stores, or are you kind of sticking with your game plan?
For right now, we're still focusing on Steam Direct for the regions that we're shipping directly to. We do distribute in a few regions through Komodo in Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, and Hong Kong, and they do sell in retail stores. But for our direct regions, we think having a direct relationship with our customers selling through Steam has been working out really well with Steam Deck.
I would want to dive into something a little separate. Lawrence, earlier you did talk about speaking to players and like marketing and stuff like that. I've noticed since the Steam Deck, there's been a very specific kind of fun, lighthearted tone to the way these products are revealed, how they're explained. So I would just love to know a little insight in terms of like, how do you come up with like language and vibe for Valve? Like, it's such a ubiquitous company. Like, where do you even start with that?
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, for for a lot of this announcement, a lot of the communications were kind of a group of 4 or 5 of us. Really, were like building the website, writing it, writing the script for the video, making that video. It's just really a small group of us, and that's just the tone that we chose. We just, I mean, I think it's fun and it's human, and we think that we think it's a good way to talk about our products. Like, uh, it's fun to talk about products and tell people about it because we don't have to put any spin on anything. We just are really excited about it. So we're like, okay, how can we just tell people about things in a really clear human way? And that's just sort of how it comes out.
That's cool.
Should have put all of the computer devices into like a big fat hydraulic press and then squeezed it closed. yeah, that went over really well. That ran over really well for other companies. You know?
We should do that next time.
No, they're a happy
Next
family.
time.
You can't prep them.
We were really happy with the let's all go to the lobby animation we made for all 4 devices.
It was fantastic.
That's
when
what
they
it
were
felt like. Yeah.
When they were marching at the end, I was like, oh yeah, I feel the vibes. It was really nice. So
Right.
just to finish up, Steam Deck, obviously, we've spoken about that in the past, and you sort of said to us battery life was sort of the main limiting factor with regards to, you know, advancing in power level, advancing to a Steam Deck 2 or what have you. I feel like the message has changed a little bit now. You're further along in that thinking. It sounds like there's more than just battery life that you're considering now when you're thinking about the evolution of the Steam Deck. So just talk us through where you're at right now and what we're likely to see in the future.
Yeah, it might have been conflated because I think what we've tended to talk about is like we want there to be a big leap, right? A generational leap is what we've said in terms of like performance in a specific power envelope. So that might be the battery life, because like anyone can ship something that has like a ton of power and can play any game with really amazing settings, but then it'll run for 10 minutes. So like I think the trick is finding a chip that and like working with someone to build something that can play games at another level of performance without sacrificing a ton of battery life. I think Pierre-Luc can say a lot more about that.
Yeah, but battery life is really more about maintaining the current level of battery life that we have with Steam Deck OLED, which we're really happy with where we got there. But for sure, just adding power at the cost of battery life is not an acceptable trade-off in our Steam Deck 2 considerations. We want to have a big performance leap at the same battery life that we have right now. And the technology for that, simply put, just does not exist today. I think architectures are getting better and processes are getting better, but the kind of off-the-shelf, chips that you see being used for various handhelds and other devices right now are directly taken from like kind of laptop roadmap chips, right? They're not customized for handheld, so they're targeting power envelopes that are more like 30 to 35 watt peak, right, as opposed to the Steam Deck custom silicon that is kind of a 7 to 12 to 15, maybe if you're being generous, watt power envelope. But more importantly, it's designed to run efficiently at those levels, as opposed to targeting a little bit higher level of performance. And so we're trying to make sure that we stay there and we don't compromise on portability and battery life, because everyone that is using Steam Deck is telling us that's really important to them.
Yeah, for sure.
In terms of SteamOS also, because SteamOS to me seems like the most important thing here. It is central to all this. How are we looking at in terms of timeline for SteamOS becoming this super easy thing where I can put together a machine and install it right away? Because I'm itching to do that. I installed it on my ROG Ally X not too long ago. I had some little finicky things here and there, but like how far are we looking in terms of this being easy and I can get it on all my devices?
I think we're getting closer. The work that we've done behind the scenes for Steam Machine, but also in general, has been aimed at just increasing the amount of compatibility that we have with different pieces of hardware, different chipsets, different platforms. One thing that we've done, I think just last month, is we added support for the latest RDNA 4 AMD GPUs. And I think we have better support now for Intel platforms. We added Lunar Lake in the last couple of weeks as well. So it's getting closer and closer, right? Like there's a bunch of big pieces that we're still working on. We don't think that it's super important right now to work on the installation experience, because there's still big gaps in the hardware support and the core experience, right? If you're installing on a random PC that might have some chipsets or parts that we're not supporting yet. So we want to work on that first. We think, but once we get to, I guess, an inflection point where we think, it's good enough to be a good source of feedback for a bunch of people, I think then we'll do some work on the installation experience. Because right now, the experience that you have, if you try and install SteamOS, is essentially the Steam Deck recovery image. That's the one thing that we have, right? Which is not what most people might expect. At the same time, most people don't expect to be installing any OS at all, right? They buy a system and there's an OS on there and it works well enough for them usually. So we're also working with more hardware vendors on preloading SteamOS on their devices as well.
Cool. Great.
Last question. Is there any chance at all that the Steam machine comes pre-installed with a brand new Valve game? Any chance of that when it ships next year?
No.
No. God damn it. Come on, man. You could have at least given us some hope.
Sorry.
I like a frank answer.
That's right. Shut it down.
Yeah, I think in practice we're making some tweaks to the Aperture Desk Job interactive shorts
nice.
to be playable with the Steam controller, because there's a ton of overlap with, it's kind of a guided tour of the controls of the Steam Deck, and I think there's a ton of overlap. So you might install that on your Steam machine and try it out, but I think we're excited about all the other games that are out there that you'll be able to play on.
Cool.
And if you have a Steam Deck, you can just throw your micro SD from your Steam Deck into your Steam machine, and then those are the games that are pre-installed on your Steam machine.
That's very nice. It's actually a bit of that's an underrated feature, I think. That doesn't get a lot of attention, but that is actually pretty cool that you'll be able to do that. Absolutely.
It's on the frame too.
Yeah, you can plug it into your frame.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Cool. All right. Well, guys, thank you so much for making the time. We really, truly appreciate it. It was a fantastic chat, and it's always just so fascinating to watch the moves that you guys are making. And, big fan of the whole hardware lineup, as in Steam Deck's been fantastic, and Steam controller back in the day was weird, but cool in its own way. And this one's looking great. And just lots of reasons to be excited for the future. So, best of luck with it. And thanks again for joining us.
For sure. Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
Fellas.
Yeah. Thanks a lot.